Good morning, how you doing? Good morning. Awesome, awesome. I'm going to do the best I can to give you what motivates me each day to wake up and drives me in this great profession, the American Fire Service. To come up here after Chief Salka, I couldn't pick anybody better. Growing up, reading Chief Salka's stuff, getting to watch him in classes, sitting on the front row, it's just an honor to come up on this stage after Chief Salka getting such an awesome award. For the next 45 minutes, I hope to inspire you, motivate you, and maybe take you back to your childhood. The time when you wanted to be a firefighter and you waited to get on that specific fire department, and bring us back to what our true mission, what the culture of the fire service was founded on, what the Hall of Fame means. So many great leaders, not just in the military, but the fire service in America, Canada, and across the world, that has driven this great profession that gets people to buy your lunch when they don't know you're sitting at a table, or pick up your coffee when you're in line at a fast food restaurant. It's worth the risk should not be a controversial term. It should not be a term that we debate, whether it be at a cafe, the kitchen table, or in any given bar on any given night. It should be an accepted term used by all firefighters from all countries across the globe. It's worth the risk is what we're founded on. It's what the people expect. A great fire department in South Florida called Polk County. I've been there, trained there, have friends there, a fellow friend that was a chief that retired. I have a lot of respect for Polk County. The sad thing is, one bad incident brought them on the national spotlight. We've all had bad incidents. We've all had bad calls. But it's not about Polk County, because it's a great fire department. But it did bring to light that the American people do expect us to do what? To take risk. And I think about the chief, the great chief, the senior chief up here. 53 years. And what did he say? What was the little bit of his little short talk this morning? 53 years in the National Fire Department. He talked about saving lives and saving property. The foundation of my first 30-hour volunteer firefighter program I took in the late 80s at the Midway Fire Protection District, where my dad was the chief. It's worth the risk. Who's leading who in the fire service? Who's leading who? We must wake up each and every day looking to be leaders ourselves, to be better than no one else, but to be better than ourselves tomorrow when we wake up and we look in the mirror and we evaluate today versus yesterday. Chief Salka meant so much standing back there and you talking about Harvey Eisner. I would not be here too if it was not for Chief Harvey Eisner. They gave me a shot 15 years ago. If you think I'm young now, imagine 15 years ago. I looked at Firehouse magazine, I looked at Chief Harvey Eisner, and I thought you had to be a New York City or New Jersey firefighter in a big city from the Northeast to teach at Firehouse, and Chief Harvey Eisner gave me a shot. He gave me a chance. And he took this picture, November 1976, 521 Sherman Avenue in the Bronx, a firefighter leading out a blind man. And that is what it's about. That's what the fire service is about, and this is what it needs to continue to be about till my last day on the job. We need leaders that want to lead on the battlefield, and our battlefield is not Iraq, Afghanistan. It's in each and every neighborhood, from a private dwelling to a multiple dwelling to a commercial building fire. We need firefighters, officers, and chiefs that understand it's worth the risk to put ourselves out there so we can save others, that we can make a difference, that we can give somebody another shot. On average, each day in this country, 7 to 8 civilians succumb to fire, trapped in their houses by smoke and fire. We are their last call. Yes, smoke detectors, fire prevention is critical. My father was a fire marshal as a young kid in the 70s into the early 80s. My dad sold Master Guard fire alarm smoke detectors. They wound up. It was steel gold, hung on the wall as a little kid. I grew up believing in smoke detectors. But when smoke detectors fail, we cannot fail. We shall show up. We must be aggressive. And aggressive, too, should not be a debatable term. It should not be a controversial term. I saw a slide recently from a regional conference where a great chief put up there and said, if you had cancer, would you want an aggressive oncologist? If you had anything other than the fire service, you would want them to be aggressive. If you had a realtor to sell your house, you'd want them to be aggressive. You'd want an open house every Saturday and every Sunday. But when the fire service talks about aggressive, oh, it becomes a debate. We need more leaders like the commissioner here. We need people that want to step up and fill the shoes to form a legacy, not because you want to be important or better than anybody else, but because you truly love the American Fire Service and you want it to be the best. You want to leave something behind like Chief Harvey Eisner, a legacy, somebody that built Firehouse Magazine up and went out and recruited people like Chief Salka talked about, giving people like myself 15 years ago at a young age a chance to teach at a nationally recognized conference, to share the message that has been shared with me growing up in the fire service. The Mickey Mouse stuff has got to stop. I chose this picture of Mickey Mouse not because I'm from Florida and it drives our economy, but because he's up on the top of a ladder shooting water through a window. As a young kid, with my father coming from the south side of Chicago, being a big buff of Chicago, I knew what quick water was when I was a junior firefighter. I believed in it. I still believe in it today. I'll be teaching a class tomorrow at 9:45 called Gallons Per Second. It's about knocking fires in the throat in a matter of seconds and not minutes. Like Chief Clark in the Blue Book told us, if we're not achieving some type of success in 60 seconds or less, then we're not suppressing the fire with enough GPM, or I like to refer to it as GPS. UL is awesome. I sit on the coordinated fire attack panel for UL. Been doing burns around the country. It's huge. We have to have science meet the street with the experience involved to decipher the information. But when the exterior attack study came out, people read the cliff notes, they jumped on it, and they started rewriting their SOGs that all water must be from the outside first. Why not wait till the interior attack study comes out? Because when the interior attack study came out and you truly read, maybe not the 600 and some pages, but a few hundred of the most important pages in there, you would realize that interior fire attack is still where it's at in terms of saving lives and property. We need fireground leadership and training. We need leaders like the commissioner here. There was a captain on Rescue 1, Mike Lombardo, another great combat veteran that has traveled the country teaching other firefighters how to save lives through intelligent fireground decision making, but understanding there's going to be risk taking, like it says on the inside of your coat. Unavoidably ultra hazardous. Unavoidably ultra hazardous. There is a risk. There's a risk when you get up and you cross the street each and every day. There's a risk when you get in your car, even with your seatbelt on. But we need more combat veterans, and we need solid fireground training. In the 90s, a great program came out called Back to the Basics. In New York, they put on a seminar. I still have the binder today. Andy Fredericks, Chief Salka, some of the other, Chief Tracy taught it. Just, that's what we have to get back to. It's crazy to think that now 20 years later, I'm saying it again to an audience here in Nashville, that it's still back to the basics. We should never leave the basics. From stretching a hose line to forcing a door to truly understanding what an oriented search is. I thought I knew what an oriented search was until I had over 10 years in the fire service and I took Chief Salka's class, a hands-on program where they just turned our hood around, no smoke, no fire, and made us go in and ask, how many bedrooms did you search? How many bathrooms? And I was like, well, I don't know. We'll do it again. Come out and say, well, I searched 3 bedrooms. You know, one had a set of bunk beds, one had a king bed, and I went into 2 bathrooms. One bathroom was connected to the master bedroom. That's what an oriented search is. That's how we're going to save civilian lives when the smoke detector fails. We need more places like Jim McCormick's FDTN in Indianapolis, where it should not be controversial, the hands-on training does. It's the greatest in the country. The training is second to none. It teaches firefighters in a controlled environment how to properly tactically perform, because tactics put out fire. And without strong tactics, we will fail. And we will have more line of duty deaths. But with strong tactics and a proper strategy to manage those tactical abilities, we can be more successful than ever before. I still think the greatest fire service is to come. I think the greatest fire service is tomorrow, not yesterday. Why is it better tomorrow? Because we can take what Chief Salka and the other great leaders in the fire service have given to us, and then we can pass it on to somebody else, and as it grows, that foundation will be stronger. And pictures like this on the internet or social media should not be controversial. Nobody's forcing you to do this. Why is this firefighter doing this? Because somebody's life is hanging in the balance of what's going on right here. Civilian lives have been saved over and over again from ladder splicing, using roof ladders with the roof hooks hanging over a balcony. Is it dangerous? Guaranteed it's dangerous. But we manage that risk through dedication and training. So I ask yourself as I open up here, why a firefighter? This is me in the 70s in my little fire car. Can't see it in the back, but in the back of the picture is my dad's Chief's truck, 53 pickup truck. Why a firefighter? When you leave today and you go looking through that manual of all the great classes that you can take this afternoon, tomorrow, and Saturday, why did you become a firefighter? Was it to run 5 or 6 medical calls a night, which is important? My mother and father had a life longer than they would have if it wasn't for firefighter paramedics. ALS-based fire protection. Midway is an ALS fire department. And my mom was able to live 8 additional years because the firefighter paramedics arriving on a fire truck when she had a significant stroke, they kept her alive until the transport unit got there and they helicoptered her out. So I believe in fire-based EMS. I believe in advanced life support on fire engines. But our foundation is fire protection. No one else is coming to stretch a line and put water on the fire and search occupiable space. We have to get back to wanting to be that legend, somebody to look up to, somebody that's greater than yourself, somebody that motivates you to be a better person, not just as a firefighter, but as an individual to give back to your community, to make it a better and safer place to live, to have value. Value in yourself, that is so critical. You have to have purpose, and then when you find your purpose, that's where your passion will just unleash and allow you to do things that you yourself never thought were possible. As a young kid, this was in the Firehouse magazine, and I'll never forget when I was turning 14, I was going to get my first set of bunker gear, and all I wanted was a New Yorker helmet. I wanted to get so bad out of that Metro helmet because this is what I wanted to be. And it scares me that possibly some people that are infiltrated in the fire service are wanting to drive this away. Do I believe in decon and 2 hoods, a second set of gear, extractor washing machines, exhaust systems for our apparatus? Guaranteed I do. But it has to be thought out properly. Not just an immediate go from no exhaust system, no 2 hoods, no bunker gear, to all of a sudden we're jumping off the Titanic and going to clean cabs. Everyone in here has been affected by cancer. I lost my father to cancer, multiple myeloma. The last part of my dad's life, he got an additional $3,000 a month untaxed from the federal government because he retired from the Air Force. And he served when he got in during the Korea conflict, and he served in Vietnam, and they determined that his cancer was serving our great country, serving in the Air Force. But if my dad didn't die from cancer, he was going to die from something else. He was 3 weeks short of being 81, but we put down that he died from cancer. Cancer is bad. We have to be smart. We have to educate ourselves. But we got to be careful that we don't throw out the bathtub with the water in relation to what our mission is, our calling is to save lives and property. I stand up here thinking about my father growing up on the south side of Chicago, 75th and South Illinois, just a few blocks from the collapse that happened many years ago in Chicago, where my dad was a paper boy, and he dropped out of high school at the age of 16. My grandmother signed the paperwork, and he joined the United States Air Force during the Korean conflict. Served over 20 years, traveled the globe, operated in Vietnam, got bullets into the belly of his aircraft. My father was enlisted. He was a soldier, an airman, but he served. And he believed that this is a great country. And then as growing up as a kid and him being in a fire, he joined the Midway Fire Protection District in 1971, became the chief in 1977, served 2 different times with a total of about 9 years as chief. And then his last 10 years, all the way up till he got diagnosed with cancer at the age of 80, he served as the fire marshal. He loved the fire service. He loved people, regardless of their religion, regardless of their color, regardless of their beliefs, what country they're from. He loved people and he loved to serve. And I think about as a kid, my dad never told me he grew up in low-income housing. He never told me that him and all of his siblings and his mom and dad shared one bathroom. It's my grandmother as a teenager that explained to me what my father did and didn't have. My dad never said, well, I didn't have that, so you didn't have it. He wanted better for me than he had for himself. My father wanted better for me than he had for himself. My dad was a quiet, silent leader, but he believed in putting others before himself. Not just my mom, not just my brother and sister, but other people. Other people, because he thought that he had a calling to provide that, whether it was being in the Air Force or being a firefighter in Midway. Yes, times have changed. We don't drink out of a garden hose, we drink out of bottled water. But sometimes I think we should maybe get back to drinking water out of a garden hose and understanding the foundations of what built a great fire service in this great country and living a long life of commitment. The picture up on the screen is my mom and dad, married 56 years. My mom died 4 months after my dad. She died of a broken heart. I'd heard of it growing up, but I actually witnessed it and saw it. Died 4 months. 8 years she survived after a stroke, basically bedridden and ridden to a chair. And once she realized that my dad had passed, sleeping right next to her, she too passed. And the other 2 great individuals are fortunate for me is my mother-in-law and my father-in-law for the last 20 years. And they too have been married for 50-some years. I'm very open about my wife, Jessica, and I, who's here on the front row, that I could not be here to speak or do this presentation or even travel the country without her support. And Jessica and I are only married today because of the leadership that her parents gave her and my parents gave me, that it's a lifelong commitment. When things get tough, you got to get tougher. And when you're in the valley, there's only one place to go, it's the mountaintop. And we have to have that vision that tough times is what makes us stronger so we can enjoy the great times. Because faith, family, friends, fitness, and fire is what it's all about. And we have to have our priorities of how we're going to live our life, a life of balance, a life that we can live without regret. And when I talk about it's worth the risk, living without regret in the fire service would be making sure that before that call happens, you know that it can happen and that you put in the proper time, dedication, and training and commitment to being the best firefighter you can be on the worst call. Last night was my shift. I should have been on duty as in the 2nd Battalion of Escambia County Fire Rescue. Had a vehicle go over the Lillian Bridge that separates us from Alabama. We were the first companies to arrive. I would have been the first chief to arrive. When a car went on head-on with a tanker, the tanker caught on fire, was dropping flammable liquids into the intercoastal waterway, and 3 fatalities. You can't predict calls like that, but you know they could happen at any given time. Are you ready when that bell rings? Do you understand? Is it worth the risk when you pull up on the top of a bridge going over Perdido Bay from Pensacola to Alabama and you see a tanker truck on fire? Are you going to turn around and go back to the firehouse? Are you going to stand it in bravery and do what the people expect us to do? Yes, manage risk. Are you going to be that firefighter that you wanted to be when you were a kid? This is my 3 kids and the chief of Midway's kids years ago on the back of the telesquirt that I used to ride. And this picture, I look at it and I think about, as a little kid, all I wanted to do was grow up and be a firefighter. All I wanted to do was grow up and be a firefighter, and finally I realized you can't do both. But I always remind myself of all the things that I wanted to do as a young kid. I always wanted my bunker gear. My parents got off cheap on May 21st, 1988. For my birthday, I got a set of bunker gear. Bunker pants, bunker coat. It was actually pull-up boots, the first set. We didn't go to bunker pants till the 91 or 92. This picture was taken in 1992. The guy in the red jumpsuit there, just retired, 20-some years, Lieutenant Colonel, Marine Corps, retired out of the Pentagon. The guy next to him is the fire chief of Midway, Jonathan Kanzig now, and then the other guy has since passed away, Jay. Do not forget where you come from and why you joined this great profession. We must daily, weekly, monthly remind ourselves, why are we a firefighter? Why are we in the greatest profession? It's to save lives and property. And yes, we are going to have some bad days. There's going to be some times where we failed our training. Not our training failed us. We failed our training because we didn't put in that extra time of stretching a line or forcing a door or sitting in that class at a seminar. We chose to stay out a little too late, sleeping a little bit, maybe go to the bar instead of going to classes. This is one of the 2 direct line of duty deaths on a fire ground that affected me. Maurice Bartholomew, November 25th, 2000, died in a 1-story, 1,400 square foot ranch with a poured slab, not even a basement, a bread and butter fire. He should have been in there, and he was in there. But at that time, in November 25th of 2000, we were engaging in an experiment in the American Fire Service called positive pressure attack. It looked good in that little green VHS tape put out by the people that sell the PPV fans. But when you don't have the proper training, you don't understand the CFMs and the proper discharge space, it can drive fire into unwanted places. Going to a fire and placing a positive pressure attack fan at the front door when the fire is yet to have water applied to it is like asking to go to a fire when there's a 40-mile-an-hour wind. This is the day after the fire. He was on the nozzle assigned, reported confirmed entrapment, and when he went in, instead of taking that nozzle and seeking and destroying a 1-room fire transition into a 2-room fire, he searched while dragging a hose line around. We know searching and dragging a hose line, the two don't go together. He'd have been safer if he'd have just been searching without a hose line, because he mentally would have been what? Oriented, so when things went bad, he would know what window to go out or where to go, but the line gave him a false sense of security. After Maurice's death, my father told me, being a person that had been in combat and military, he said, "Son, I know you're hurt. I know you're aching." He said, "But you got to wake up tomorrow and you got to put one foot in front of the other. People are expecting you to show up on their worst day. They're expecting you to perform." November 25th was a bad day for you, he told me. He said, "But you're going to have so many more great days, and the best thing you can do is honor Maurice through training and teaching around the country that he didn't die in vain, and that if he were to come back today, what would he want to do if that fire happened again at 2 o'clock in the morning? He'd want to force the front door, he'd want to push down the hallway, but this time he would go straight to the fire, open the nozzle, and what would happen in about 30 to 45 seconds of 1 or 2 room fires? It would be out, and then the firefighters coming behind him could start a search, starting from the fire area to the uninvolved areas. The gentleman there on the top right, my friend Matt Negley, District Chief, Orlando Fire Department. In the fire service, you meet people across the country that become better friends than the people you work with. He was going to be slated to most likely be the fire chief of the Orlando Fire Department. Had his master's degree, started the Orlando Fire Conference nearly 20 years ago. He was having some struggles, and he was sharing them with me for over a 2-year period. But never in a million years did I think he would take a gun, drive to a secluded place that he had taken me to before, his place of peace, his place of sanctuary in New Smyrna Beach, call the 911 dispatcher to say where they could find him, and pull out a gun and take his life. I can't bring back Maurice. I can't bring back Matt Negley. But I can tell you one damn thing I can do. I can motivate others to live for another day. I can motivate others to train others to save lives, to understand that it's worth the risk to put the American people, the people in Canada and other countries before yourself, because you signed up for something greater than yourself. If you don't want to do it, find another job. There's a lot of great professions. We need people working at Walmart and McDonald's, but we need people riding fire trucks to be willing to understand that there are risks to take. And America is still burning and civilians are still at risk. We need to understand when and where to do what type of tactics. And we need not a culture of safety, but as my good friend Lieutenant Ray McCormack says, a culture of extinguishment, a culture of training, a culture of putting them before ourselves and providing tactical proficiency on the fire ground. Being aggressive. This is not your traditional 2.5-story frame. It's a 1-story private dwelling ranch. Aerial ladder backed in the driveway of a house of a sailor that just retired with 25 years. His entire life savings is in this house. He owned it outright. He was self-insured. He did not have insurance. Whatever we save is saved because there's no check coming. He does not have insurance. His brand new pickup truck, no insurance. He's self-insured. He had saved so much money over 25 years and not paying the insurance company. He was self-insured, and I know that's not real common. But at this fire, the property that we save is truly saved. And we keep telling people, well, let the house burn down. They'll get an insurance check. I can tell you in Escambia County, the 17th poorest metropolitan county in the country, the majority, over 75% of the fires I go to, when we get the information after the fire, they do not have insurance. Property still counts. When you see this video, if you're able to look closely, before they even stepped on the roof, water was spitting through the peak of the ridge vent. What does that mean going on the interior? A hose line's already inside. They're pulling the ceilings, flowing water in the attic. That's a coordinated fire attack. Water is being applied to the products of combustion to the fire. They open the roof and watch closely. You'll see the hose line literally come through the vertical vent opening as they do it. Now, people will see something like this on the internet and say they don't need to be on the roof because it's on fire. Well, of course it's on fire. That's why they called the fire department. But what are they doing? They have an independent aerial ladder. They have 2 roof ladders, one on each side of the hole. There's 2 ground ladders to the roof. Somebody from the turntable's watching them. And before they stepped on the roof, they were in full bunker gear, breathing air, hoods up, flaps down with structural fire gloves on. Watch, if you look close, you'll see the water coming through the smoke and the fire. That fire's just barely meeting the GPM flow, right? So they either got to flow more water or let more heat out. That's coordinated. For time's sake, I'm going to stop it there, but that's the house the day after. If you could see this on a computer, the hole is the exact same size they cut. It did not burn away. They cut that hole, and within a matter of about 60 more seconds in that video, the fire's completely out, and that's the house that night. Everything in all 3 bedrooms, the living room, were completely saved. Rockin' attic fires. The kitchen fire extended to the attic space. Tactics put this fire out. 3 hose lines on the ground, 2 inside operate. A what-if line on the outside as a backup to the 2 primary lines inside. Firefighters operating on the roof. It's worth the risk. See, we have to look at the true numbers. How many firefighters have died doing what they were just doing? Full bunker gear, breathing air, hood up, flaps down, structural gloves on a private dwelling. How many firefighters have died doing that? 0. On a private dwelling, full bunker gear, breathing air, hood up, flaps down. Do we have ones where they weren't breathing air, where they slipped off the roof? But from that, and my message to you is not to go start doing vertical ventilation at private dwellings. What I'm telling you is sometimes we need to dig deeper into what's really going on. I'm more nervous, stressed out, pucker factor, if you will. I can't describe what that means. When firefighters enter a private dwelling on an attack line through the front door than I am when firefighters are on a roof, because more firefighters died in the last 2 years on the nozzle than have died doing residential vertical ventilation in decades. Is it dangerous? Yes, it's dangerous. But let's think about what's really killing us. Now, I had to put that slide up because vertical ventilation is so controversial. Just because I disagree with you does not mean that I hate you. We need to relearn that in our society. It's okay to agree to disagree. It's okay to have differences of opinions, as long as we're here for the mission of saving lives and property and putting them first, serving the public and a greater cause than ourselves. This fire happened a couple miles from my house, a gated community, 3-story private dwellings right on the Intercoastal Waterway overlooking Pensacola Beach. Tiger Point Golf Course on the other side, the water looking over the Intercoastal and Pensacola Beach. Midway Fire Department, where I grew up, where one of my best friends, the fire chief, where my dad was the chief, my dad was the fire marshal. This house this night was occupied with I think almost a half a dozen kids. It was the Saturday after the last day of school, 3-story private dwelling. The entire stairwell is on fire in the decay stage almost. Heavy fire burning up in the attic. You can see the fire burning the soffits. Watch very closely. Right now they're informed that Sky, a 13-year-old teenager that my daughter played on the same softball team with her, is trapped inside. Is it worth the risk now? Is it worth the risk? A 13-year-old girl in a small suburban community. Look at that. The stairwell's burning. The front door's about to burn off. The second floor entryway's burning. See, we just can't show up on these calls and decide it's worth the risk. It has to be a culture of it's worth the risk through our training and through our daily response and commitment. See, right now I have the answers because this fire already happened. I have hindsight. She's in that 3rd floor window right there, the master bathroom, with the door locked. She was taking a shower. You say, why would the door be locked? Well, if you have younger siblings, they might want to mess with you. You lock the door. That's what it looked like when a first due engine company pulled up from the front. It's burning pretty good. That's where you better have experience. Experience matters. The only person that's going to tell you experience doesn't matter is the one that doesn't have it. That's the back of the house. You can see where they got the 24 fully extended. They got a roof straight ladder on a 2nd floor balcony. They've got to get to that 3rd floor Charlie side, and they got to make entry. They got to make entry, but it's a problem. It's hurricane glass. 40-some swings with a Halligan. They needed a saw to cut it. And I tell you, tomorrow's going to be better than today. It's things like the new saws that just came out, the K-12 battery-operated saw. That would be an awesome place for a battery-operated K-12 to be able to cut that glass. And you can see the fire blowing out the master bedroom, 3rd floor sliding glass. She's in the bathroom. She's in the bathroom with the door closed. Her only chance is us, firefighters, knowing how to stretch a line, knock down a big bulk of fire, and search that occupiable space. I didn't say survivable space, occupiable by us, and then we will extract them, remove them, pass them off to medical personnel that are trained, and then they will determine if the space they were in was survivable. The only way to know a space is survivable is to occupy it with firefighters wearing $2,000 set of bunker gear, a $3,000 air pack, using a $10,000 thermal imager for an interior aggressive fire attack to locate trapped occupants. Firefighterrescues.com years ago when we opened and started it, we proved within a matter of months, that firefighters in this country are saving more lives each and every single day from interior fire attack than we lose firefighters in a year. You say, how many firefighters a year die in the American Fire Service from aggressive firefighting? It's less than 10. Is that bad? Not a day goes by that I don't forget about Maurice and his pictures and other brothers and sisters that have paid the ultimate sacrifice. I honor them as best I can. I remember them. But I've had more friends die a suicide than die on the fire ground. That's important too. That's a priority. Whether it's Maurice or whether it's Matt Negley. And it's this guy the night before when she was burning her homework to put in that trash can, and later that night it rekindled from that wind coming off the ocean, and before anybody knew it, the house was rocking and rolling. We must motivate others and train in honor of Sky. We must. We can't change yesterday, but we can prepare for tomorrow. We, the fire service, too, need to celebrate our wins. We must celebrate our victories. It's not arrogance. It's what should drive us. The wins, like they do in the FDNY when they make a significant grab. They honor the brothers and sisters that trained and are able to make it down that zero visibility hallway to that kid, Johnny or Susie, trapped in that crib, to remove them, to send them off to the awesome medical personnel that this great country has trained to give them another day, to give them another chance, to reduce that thousands that die every year. Civilians are being successfully rescued each and every day. All of these are pictures of successful grabs. This woman here in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, that window the fire's coming out, that's the room she was in 60 seconds ago. 2 minutes max. They went in, they got her as they're coming out the window. The door failed, and literally the room flashed over by the time they got, you could see the soot. She's conscious in her front yard. If these firefighters in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, did not believe in VES, they did not believe it's worth the risk, they did not give day in and day out time and effort to be ready, she would not be alive today for her 2 kids. But when they responded as it was going to be their worst fire, their worst call of their career. They came off the rig, buttoned up, ready to go, ready to mask up in 20 seconds. Right, thermal imager turned on, take the glass high, finish low, in the room, somebody searching like with a set of binoculars, get her to the window. The deputy chief, Suburban Fire Department deputy chief, had responded in from home, and the deputy chief actually put his gear on and was engaged to give additional staffing to give her another day. Everybody wants to be a fireman until it's time to do fireman shit. We, the fire service, must continue to do what our fathers and forefathers did. We are the last line of defense for our U.S. military and our armed forces when they're overseas fighting for our freedom and they leave their families behind and they're sleeping in their homes. In every community across the country, and something bad happens, whether it be a car in a ditch, a car in a pond, a house fire, whatever the case may be, we must respond with a mentality, it's worth the risk. We must respond to fires understanding the science, and fire growth today is faster than it's ever been, and we better be good at hitting it hard, hitting it fast, and backing it up. We must embrace science. We must embrace UL, but we must get all the facts before making a decision. We must understand that our foundations are critical, but in some parts of this country, some communities, the traditional second due, catching a hydrant and laying a line may not be what's best for them when you don't have an engine and truck rolling out of the same firehouse, and your engine company has only 3 people and you're carrying 750 gallons of water and it's a 1 or 2 room fire. What do you need more than a hydrant? You need 3 more people to help stretch that line, force a door, and do a search. We'll send a fire truck, an ambulance, and a supervisor to a nursing home to have 8 people do CPR on 1 individual, but how many will we assign to that initial fire attack to get water on the fire and do a oriented, productive search in the right amount of time? Action saves lives. Action on a fire ground. Knowing when to and when not to engage. Knowing when, as chief officers, to have tactical command versus strategic command. There's a time and a place. East Coast must meet West Coast and vice versa in the realm of understanding, commanding, and controlling fires on a fire ground for tomorrow's challenges. We must stamp time on a fire ground. We must call enough resources early on to properly staff the fire ground operations of today. We must hold all companies, and when in doubt, lay it out. Put hose on the ground, put ladders to the building, and get in these buildings to understand them. I'm all about preventing line of duty deaths, preventing cancer. I'm all about the new goals. I study it, I read it. The online classes, I take them. But does this include the civilians too? Does this include the civilians too? Guaranteed, I don't want to see another brother die from their own hands, or a brother die from a miscalculated fire growth or failing, or venting the wrong window at the wrong time. I want to honor my dad each and every day, not only as a firefighter, but as a husband and as a father and as a friend to my dedicated friends. Because we must understand that if you can't figure out your purpose, figure out your passion, for your passion will lead you right into your purpose. If you're going to be in this great profession, you must understand your purpose, because that's what's going to drive you, and that passion, and understanding that we are more successful than we give ourselves credit to, and we're saving more lives than we're losing based on our service delivery.
Battalion to it, Cambia.
Battalion 2.
I'm on scene at 1200 block of Rio Grande. 1,400 square foot, single story, working fire on the Charlie side. 12, come in, pull just past the house, be there on your right. Establish Rio, come in. Let's have all units switch to CD.
Copy, Battalion 2 on scene, Rio coming in.
This is a fire, 5 o'clock in the morning. One caller says a fire in the area of. Couldn't see in the first part of the video, but you can see fires blowing out at least one window in the rear of the house. The Charlie side near the Delta, at the top of the screen, you can see the flames lipping, rolling out from under the soffits. Three cars in the driveway, nice cars, it's obvious, tags are current. Nobody outside to tell us that it's not occupied. One neighbor did come out and says a family of 5, possibly 7 could be occupying the house. Fully buttoned up, front doors locked. First due apparatus is a quint with 4 people, 500 gallons of water. Second due rig is a couple of minutes away. The closest hydrant 700 feet away. Right now, do we need 4 more people? More, or do we need a hydrant more? It's a one-room fire. We need to understand fire flow rates and extinguishment. Sometimes we need staffing more than we need water for them. 4 people are going to be fully taxed, forcing the front storm door, the front door, stretching a line, getting that line 12 feet in, down the hallway 20 feet to put water in the master bedroom. All hands are operating. Seat assignments are done. That engine just came in. If they would have stopped at the hydrant 700 feet away, they'd be another 3 or 4 minutes getting off, catching a hydrant, driving down the street properly. What did those 2 firefighters on that second due rig come off? Breathing air, ready to go, because there's a command established and there's already an apparatus on scene. What did those 2 firefighters that just came off, what are they going to do? Search. The lines in a building to get water on the fire, a line between fire and survivable, occupiable space. In that short period of time now, 2 apparatus are on scene doing what we call the booster backup to get 2 lines stretched, proper searches, and ventilation coordinated with proper water application. That's what we need for tomorrow. 3 minutes and 40 seconds for today's fuel packages to flash over, and that's only of the first room. I'm not going in a building, I'm fixing a kink.
Go ahead. I got a working fire with a traffic. 1 rescue's already made. I got 4 guys inside with 2 other ones.
The first and second new driver are wearing bunker gear in case something bad happens. All hands are working. I'm asking for a hook because there's nobody else.
If you need a closest hydrant, here's that.
There's 4 inside, 2 around back are popping the back door, taking windows in proximity to the fire location. They just got water on the fire. They reported fire's knocked down. And I'm just going to take a couple of windows above the sash to let out the residual smoke for a more effective search operation. All hands, total of 9 people, 4 in the first rig, 4 in the second rig, and myself, in an occupied house.
Go 130.
I'm going to stop it here. I just want you to see the one important factor. There she is. It was worth the risk to enter that house, to pull her out, and she fully recovered. She's alive today. The driver's wearing full bunk gear and an air pack. 20-plus year EMT is going to provide BLS care until the ambulance arrives. This is what you define as an all-hands private dwelling fire. All 9 personnel, including the chief, myself, engaged, operating. First time I showed that video in front of 300 or 400 people, I literally had people that came to nerve and said, that was pretty risky for you to let that crew to enter without any other apparatus on scene. Pretty risky. If we won't risk it for that, what will we risk it for? 2 cars in a driveway? That was an easy fire. 1,600 square foot private dwelling on a porch slab. Fire's already self-vented on the Charlie Delta corner. It's easy. Open the front door. I mean, literally, you can look at the layout. You know, you go in 12 feet, you turn right, you go 20, you open the nozzle, you put water in the fire, you notify the chief, we got water on the fire, and now we can start breaking a little bit of glass. Glass is cheap. All I ever wanted to do as a kid was work for the FDNY or the Chicago Fire Department. I gave that up to stay living in the same neighborhood, Hickory Shores in Midway, where I grew up as a firefighter. And I have no regrets. My kids have a great life. But growing up, I've read the books from Our Lady of Angels to more recent books like 3,000 Degrees. I study the fire service each and every day. And I believe what the captain from squad in New York says, leave the job a little better for the next guy. So when you leave this morning, when you leave Nashville, are you going to go back and embrace it's worth the risk to put yourself out there for a better fire service, to continue to fight for better nozzles, better hose, better air packs, better thermal imagers, better staffing, to reduce that 7 or 8 a day, to reduce those thousands of civilians that are dying by fire, that I truly think that when the smoke detector fails, that we can make a difference. I've seen it over and over again, civilians removed from fires, and they were able to live another day. I hope you can join me tomorrow at 9:45 in room 207 for gallons per second. It's a class on fast attack and putting them first through rapid fireground operations and private dwellings. I hope you have a great time in Nashville. I hope you enjoy Firehouse Expo. God bless you. Love the American Fire Service.